Okay, well, good evening. I'm Mark Pinto here at Phoenixville Public Library, and welcome to tonight's author chat with local author Kathleen McKee. A tragic accident, an unknown artist, and a discovery below the landscape. Can Sue connect the random details before her granddaughter becomes another victim? That's how the blurb begins for Below the Landscape, an Aspen Notch Mystery, the latest book by Kathleen McKee. Pleased to have Kathleen as our guest tonight, so welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you.
This is your fourth book in the Aspen Notch Mystery series. Your stories and their settings are often inspired by experiences of people you've met or places you've lived. And you've stated that Aspen Notch is based on your memories as a teacher in Scranton, Pennsylvania. For those of you not familiar with Kathleen's previous books, can you give us a general description of Aspen Notch and describe some of the similarities with Scranton?
Well, I have to tell you all, I don't know the questions that Mark is going to ask me tonight. So I'm just hitting it cold. So let me just tell you that I wrote a story that I thought would be just a plain mystery, a standalone mystery called No Gifts to Bring. And it was set because I knew the area. And I thought of this blizzard that had happened when I lived up near Scranton that shut down I-81, which is a truck route all the way from Maryland up to New York. And they called it the Freak Storm, the Freak Valentine's Day Storm of 2007. Anyway, I created these characters and I figured, well, if someone has to up up I-81, where could they be going? Well, from southeast Pennsylvania, where we live, I thought it goes right through Scranton. I know Scranton from being there for 10 years, and it goes right up to Binghamton, where there's a lot of ski areas. So I created this Alpine Holiday Lodge and made a Christmas story, heartwarming and all of that. Well, everybody loved the characters of Sue, the main character in No Gifts to Bring, and her sidekick, who was a retired police detective, Alan Jaworski, and they wanted another story with them. Well, I decided we'd have Alan and Sue marry. He loved skiing. She liked the mountain vistas. Why not have an imaginary town, a small town in Northeast Pennsylvania? So I made up Aspen Notch, and that became Murder in Aspen Notch, the first of the Aspen Notch series, and I knew it would turn into a series. Everybody loved Alan and Sue, the interaction, and I figured small town, amateur sleuth, we could get a lot of headway, like Murder, She Wrote, or even the Nancy Drew mystery series, you know, which I loved as a child. And so it really has been a very popular series. After Murder in Aspen Notch, which brought in some of the history of Aspen Notch, which, you know, all in my mind, that the original founders' cabin was on their property. Why not create a business while Alan's busy with his police duties and Sue could run this garden shop? So the garden shop mystery was next. And then what did I have after that? And then
I wrote.
Well, anyway, it moved on through each.
Below the Landscape is next, right?
No, there's one in between there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, right. A cameo appearance.
Oh, yes. So then I created a gift shop in Aspen Notch that we called Trinkets and Treasures. the garden shop's called Blooms and something like that.
Butterflies and blooms.
Butterflies and Blooms. Duh. And so Trinkets and Treasures started off the cameo appearance, and that led then into Below the Landscape. Again, bringing in some of the history that I've based on fact, but I've intertwined with the story. And so that's the 4 Aspen Notch. Now I have a new one coming out that is going to be called Bedlam in the Blizzard. And it takes us back to the Alpine Holiday Lodge for a little vacation that Alan and Sue planned. So that will be coming out within the next month, I think.
Anything in particular about Scranton that makes an appearance in your book, Below the Landscape?
No, and Aspen Notch is not in Scranton. Aspen Notch is over closer to the New York border in my mind. But
Okay.
because No Gifts to Bring was along that I-81 corridor, which goes right through Scranton, I knew the Drinker Street exit. I knew Dunmore. I could talk about Oliphant and Archibald. And I know that Terry Bates lives up there and she has read many of my books. I don't know her personally, but she has often told me on Facebook how much she has enjoyed them because she can picture those locations that I could see as I wrote No Gifts to Bring. So, so Aspen Notch is not there, but that whole area is over coal mines. My home in Archibald, my home was a new build on a coal breaker site. So my yard was filled with coal, bits of coal all the time that would like rise up. And I lived 2 houses from the Lackawanna River, which when I bought my house looked like a little quaint stream, just meandering through. But the Lackawanna River is a major flood plain, though I was told since my house was built on a coal breaker site, it would never flood there. No, it would flood up the street and flow down into my house. But anyway, but on the other side of the river, so my yard was flat, then the river, and then this steep mountain with caves. And I was so astounded when I said to neighbors, well, they must have mined up there on the hill. And they said, oh no, they mined everywhere. They mined under the rivers. I said, they mined under rivers? So in Below the Landscape, I talk about that because even when I first moved there, my insurance company made me buy subsidence insurance. And I thought, no, I'm on a coal mine. I'm on top of where they had the breaker. There's not going to be mining under there. But yeah, they said everywhere.
Subsidence, yeah, that's a word that I was not familiar with until I read your book.
Yeah, if you live up in any place in Northeast Pennsylvania, probably your insurance company would require subsidence insurance. Though it didn't really happen much, and I mentioned that in the story. Like once, it doesn't really happen that much, but it does in some cases. And when I did more research about it, the mining under the rivers, even the Susquehanna, a huge major river, had a major breach with millions of gallons of water flowing through and then killing many of the miners. Some got out through air shafts, but others did not. So it really is a remnant of what occurred. Probably now, mining has coal mining, the underground mining, anthracite mining has pretty much is not happening anymore up there. But all the towns, you know, Coaldale, which was above where I live, and I mention these towns because they were a major bustling industry up there. They held the major industries up there with coal mining, you know. So it kind of all worked in, even though, you know, I had no background in coal mining, but living there for 10 years and hearing the stories and even in Below the Landscape, I remember one evening I was standing out back talking to my neighbor over the fence, and I saw all these bats flying around, thinking they were going to the caves that were above the river. And I made a comment like, "Oh my God, the bats are going home to roost." And we laughed, blah, blah, blah. When I went to move and had, you know, they had to have the inspection, my attic was filled with bats. Yeah, they were going home to roost in my attic. So anyway, so all those memories, they kind of fit in as I'm writing, you know, they pop in as I think of a scene, and I think, oh, I remember the bats, you know. Ooh.
I was wondering, is the character of Sue autobiographical in any way?
No,
Or any-
Sue,
No. Okay.
no, Sue is not. Now, I will tell you, she does have a lot of my characteristics.
That's kind of what I meant. That's kind of what I meant. Yeah.
Yes, she's not I would say that Vicky in my Pustinia series is more like me.
Okay.
But, you know, I certainly, you know, as a single person, I never married, but I can be kind of strong-willed, some people say. and I can, you know, I can hold my own in an argument. If I were having an argument with my husband, I could imagine those things, but I would say she's not really autobiographical.
It's obvious that several of the relationships in Below the Landscape between characters have existed for a while prior to the time period of this story. And you mentioned a little bit about Alan and Sue. For those who haven't read your previous books, I was wondering if you could fill us in on some of the backstories here. Alan and Sue, Ryan and Sean, and Ryan and Jessica in particular.
Right. All right. So these evolved from, again, No Gifts to Bring. All right. Where people liked Sue and Alan. And in that story, I talked about Alan's first wife had died. He had 3 children. And I mentioned Sue had 2 children, all adult children. But when she went to the Alpine Holiday Lodge, it was because she felt distanced from her children. So there was that poignant, you know, like, well, what happened? Why were you distanced? And blah, blah, blah. And as she becomes more engaged with the people she meets at the lodge, particularly Jayla Williams, who I just made up in my head as a singer who had a gig at the lodge, who had an ability to bring people together. And she convinced Sue that she needed to make amends with her children. And we knew in that story that her children's names were Alexa and Michael, I think they were. And, you know, Alexa lived in Colorado, Michael lived in California, so she didn't see them. They didn't communicate anymore or hardly at all. And at the end of that story, they become reunited. Because I always have to have a feel-good ending, you know. And so then as I thought of another story, well, we could bring in those characters. So in a cameo appearance, I had Alexa come to visit with her daughter, Jessica. We hadn't met them, so it was the first time then. And Alexa's kind of surprised that, you know, her mother's like really engaged with not only with Alan, but the garden shop and the people in town. And she's impressed. And each time people tell her some of the things that her mother has done, like solve a murder and, you know, be captured and, you know, have death threats. And she says, Mom, we've got to communicate more. And so that story unfolded to bring out and bring forward the relationship with Alexa and the granddaughter. We don't really know too much about the other son that Alexa had. We don't know too much about her own son out in California, but you know, we might come across them in future stories because there's always fodder to add. You know, there's always a new angle here. All right, so anyway, one of the things that happened in Cameo Appearance was, and I wrote it last summer when we had that really strong storm that came through here, the Phoenixville area. Many people didn't have power for over a week. I mean, it was trees. We had trees falling on homes, right? My neighbors' homes. And I mean, there was a lot of damage. And so I got this bright idea that we could have a new little love interest with Ryan and his son, Sean, young son, Sean. His first wife died. And they come to town, they come to Aspen Notch, and actually a strong tree topples over on top of their camper. And Alan, as police chief, goes out to help them, asks Sue, can they watch the boy while the father has to go to the hospital? And so we bring in Ryan and Sean. Well, what a perfect little love-making connection with Jessica, who had just arrived for a visit. See, so it all kind of intertwines, you know? I'm trying to think of it. Basically, in every story, I try to have Sue to have a friend that she can confide in because you can share idea, you know, you can get some backstory from that. So Evelyn is her friend there in town. And she knows a lot because her husband's on town council. So Evelyn and Marty figure prominently in the stories. There's not really anybody that I think of that's like them, but you know, everybody needs a friend. So, you know, that has helped. And then I brought in, well, they were doing renovations, so they needed a painter. Evelyn could help them find people that could do the painting, to do the renovations. And Deke Hopewell, who figured in a previous story, actually had a little love interest in the town founder's granddaughter-in-law. Am I confusing you yet? And so Deke, who's now an old man, but he served as project manager for the renovations, he gives a lot of the backstory, a lot of the history of the location that Alan and Sue's home sits on, you know? How's that?
That's good. I want everybody to read your previous books, but you know.
I know, you know what, I do want them, I want my books to be standalone in the sense that I do try to bring in information about the previous book so that somebody could pick up Below the Landscape and not feel that they knew nothing about what was going on. I try to give a little bit. I don't like cliffhangers. I don't like books that you think, oh, I should have started at the beginning. I had no idea. Many readers do say it's a nice idea to start from the beginning if you can. But I do try to make each one a standalone.
There's a little passage, quote at the end of one of your chapters that I really like, because it's kind of telling, and it really makes a point about writing fiction in general. It comes at the end of chapter 35, and I'll just read the lines here. It's Evelyn saying, Ruth Jeffers has an old Aunt Stella she visits at a nursing home in Scranton, Evelyn commented. You could ask Ruth if her aunt married Ernest Pitfield. Really, I exclaimed, we might solve the mystery. Isn't that amazing? Only to you, Evelyn giggled. The rest of us could care less. I just love that, because, you know, it's a little wink wink, I think, there about writing. And it's not, this isn't really only about Sue. And I think you do a great job in the book in making us care about all the characters and what happens to them.
I have to give you 5 stars for reading the book before we even had this talk tonight.
Of course.
You know? I mean, really, because I know that a cozy mystery is not a typical male gender common read. And I do want to say, I did not set out to write a cozy mystery as is now defined by quirky covers that look childish, if you know what I'm saying. Like, but
cover, by the way, folks, if you can see it.
thank you. I am so,
What it looks like
I love, my cover designer is amazing. Yeah. But you see, I don't have like the little cartoony figures and all that you see on many cozy mystery books. And because I didn't set up to write something that was quirky or had witches and goblins, I set out to write a mystery. And then I realized that it had all of the characteristics that make up a cozy. You need to have a clean story without sex or gore or, you know, no blood spattered anyplace. Usually there's a dog or a cat involved. Usually there's food involved. And my readers kept saying, you love writing about food. And why do they have pizza all the time? You know, yeah. But the fact is, I am, you know, nutrition is my background. I am a registered dietitian, and I taught food and nutrition for many of my years of teaching. And so when you think about it, where do most of your family conversations center? Around the table. And you're not just sitting there staring at each other. You're usually eating something. Somebody has prepared something. So anyway, I you know, I don't consider my books exactly a cozy, but it has the characteristics of a cozy. And so I don't want to cover that looks like those, and that might be a fault of mine, but I love the way the designer has created an image that carries through and brands these books. Every one of the Aspen Notch Mysteries, you can tell it's a series, you know, and I think that's so remarkable. But yes, okay.
You mentioned Nancy Drew earlier as an inspiration. Are there other authors inside or outside of the cozy mystery genre, I should say, that have inspired you or your writing?
I will say that in this one, Below the Landscape, well, first of all, let me go back. My reading often had involved, I always read mysteries. and different authors, but particularly, Mr. Mary Higgins Clark, bestseller writers. And that was before I decided to actually put pen to paper. And then as I was writing Below the Land, just before I started Below the Landscape, I had no idea what I was going to write, but I knew I had to start the next book. And I picked up A Cozy Mystery by Deborah Garner. I don't know if you're familiar with her. I wasn't. It just happened to be one of the books in my Kindle library that I probably downloaded from BookBub at some point, And I really got into her story. I really liked her story. And it was set out in New Mexico, I think, and it involved silver mines. And that's really what triggered me to think, coal mines, coal mines, so in a way, she did, her writing kind of inspired me. And I really can't think of the name of the book, I'm sorry to say, but Deborah Garner. And she's an independent author, writing later in her career, lives out west somewhere. And I think that was very helpful to me as I thought about books, what I wanted to write about. But I never know what's going to bring the inspiration. That Strong Summer Storm brought the inspiration for a cameo appearance, and The Freak Snowstorm brought the inspiration for No Gifts to Bring. Every single one, even books not in the series, like A Spectre of Truth. I sat at the Kimberton post office and thought, what are these buildings? And that brought the story for A Spectre of Truth. So something touches my mind, and then it just takes off.
Can you talk a little about your writing process?
Nobody would believe my writing process. Well, first of all, I think my writing process is going to change a little bit because I am going to start working in a new medium. I write in Word, and because I set up the formatting for both the print and the ebook, which is two different things, setups basically, and two different kinds of fonts and spacing and paragraph formatting and all that. So I typically do the print format first because I have to set up, the headings where you have the headers where you have Kathleen McKee on one side and the title of the book on the other side. And I like my print to look very nice on a page. My friends think I'm crazy because I literally, as I'm writing a sentence, and because the margins are justified, if it doesn't look pretty, I change the words so that it comes out nice and even on the page. So it takes a long time to get the right word to fit to the spacing, Now that's on the print book because that has to be justified, and that's how it goes. The ebook, ebook readers, no matter which format, whether it's EPUB or Mobi, and whether you're reading on a phone, a cell phone, or a mobile device or a computer, it does the spacing. So you don't have to focus as much on that. And it doesn't include page numbers, although it does include a table of contents, which you don't have on the print side. Anyway, so I set up my page in Word, and I make the pretty sentences. The sentences look pretty on the page, and end at the end of a page and all that. Well, as I've been learning more about all this, and I bought several courses, paid for several courses on the actual skill, I learned that there's a software program called Vellum. Have you ever heard of it? Vellum? Okay. It only runs on an Apple computer. And I hadn't worked on an Apple for 25 years. And they're more pricey. So I thought, no, I'm not going to get an Apple. Well, when I heard that you can just put your Word document in Vellum, like it goes, and your whole book is done. The whole book is formatted. The top, the pages, the nice font, the margins that all look perfectly clear with no words spread out. It's all done that. And if you want it in the ebook format, do you want it EPUB? Do you want it? So, and they don't make it for a PC. So I invested at Christmas time in a new Apple computer, and I bought Vellum to do that. So I don't really have to do my process of making everything look pretty, because it's going to make everything look pretty for me. Now my big debate is, though, do I make just the next book in the pretty format? Oh, with the curly cues and the, the nice little spacing in between. Or do I go back and fix up all the other books to have the new font or the new look?
Temptation.
I know. So, but I will do the next book with Vellum, and I do think it will change my process, because I don't have to make the page look pretty anymore. It's going to make it look pretty for me, And so I think it might also then free up my mind, that I'm not always trying to look for synonyms or, find words that will fit that line. I think it will make it more free.
Yeah.
The other thing, I have a really phenomenal editor that I did not invest in early on, which I could kick myself, because I taught grammar. I edited dissertations for years. I mean, I was a pretty good editor. And when I sent, I think it was now 4 manuscripts ago, I asked this person to be my editor with a tremendous background, and forged out the big bucks, and she wrote back to tell me that I like to write in passive voice. And I kept saying, no, no, I don't write it. She said, oh yes, you do. And you like cliches. I said, well, yeah, I do like cliches. I do. Because I think that makes it a little bit more interesting. She said, no. We'll get rid of the cliches. We'll get rid of the passive voice. And she said, you like the verb to be. So we're going to avoid the verb to be. Now, you try making sentences without the verb to be. I've been there. Everything we talk about, we have I was such and such. Everything we talk about has the verb to be. And I've been listening. Like when I turn on the TV, I think, oh my God, they're all using the passive voice. And if you think about it, we talk in passive. I'm trying not to now, but I think in passive voice. I was doing, and I think maybe I thought I was writing, more, I don't know, more creatively or something. So she really has, I think, upped my level of writing, improved my writing, at least to make me more focused. And then, but there's still, I can't tell you so many people who have given me their feedback. Terry Bates served as a beta reader for Below the Landscape, which I'm tremendously grateful. She pointed out some things because she lives up in that area. And the people who have helped me so much by pointing out things that, anybody who writes has to have those people in their back pockets to
Yeah.
bring that to light.
Yeah, it really is a team effort in some respects. Yeah.
It is.
Mhm.
Yes. And so like right now, I have to keep thinking of the new title, which is Bedlam in the Blizzard. Bedlam's in the hands of the editor now. I keep saying like, oh God, when's she gonna send it? Did she send it back yet? Did she send it back yet? No. Once I make those changes, I can't get the cover designer working on it until I know the total page count. It's not so important for the ebook, but it is for the print book. And so I know it will take me probably at least a week to do the revisions. I hope not, but it could take at least a week for me to do the revisions from the editor. And then I can get the cover designer working. So another 2 weeks probably with that. So it's a long process as we go through.
You've been a self-published author for a number of years. So what made you go this route? And do you have any advice or tips for any other would-be self-published authors out there?
Yes. I didn't begin writing my first book until I was no longer teaching full time. And though I was still teaching online at 2 different universities, so I was very busy at the time. So little by little, I was writing it. And then I finally realized, my God, I'll be dead before I could ever, by the time I could find an agent and then perhaps a publisher, and you read about all the rejections, thousands, hundreds of rejections, I thought I was just going to stick it in a drawer. And a friend of mine said, no, you should self-publish, which I knew nothing about, really. So I Googled that and I learned that it's actually rather easy. And so I did an ebook. My first book, Pustinia, a novel, I put out there as an ebook. Now, at the time, I had no, I really had no marketing skills. I had no knowledge that I should have a newsletter with followers that when I put it out, it would sell. Like, first of all, that would be the goal. And my only hope was that friends would read it. I had a lot of friends I thought might find it interesting. And so I really wasn't worried. It was a hobby at that point. Well, then another friend said to me, well, you have to have a print book. And I said, no, I can't do a print book. I mean, you mean like a real book? No, I can't do a print book. I don't know how to set it up. She said, you're no dummy. Look it up, find out how you do it. So I did that. And then somebody wanted a sequel to Pustinia, and I did that. And by then, I really enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed, I enjoyed sitting at the computer and crafting this story. And then even all the different things to get it out there and published. But I knew I needed to have the skills to do this. It was not a hobby anymore. If you're going to put yourself out in front of people, you have to have a quality product. And so I took courses, I listened to podcasts, I did everything to try to teach myself how to do the best thing, and realized, no, a homemade cover is not going to cut it. If you want to have real readers and you're putting yourself out there with real people, I'm out there on Goodreads, just like James Patterson and any of the other big people. And I'm a target just as well as they are. And if my book's bad, I don't want it up, I don't want people to read it if it's bad. So the more feedback I got that the people liked the stories, I realized that I didn't have to be who I wasn't. I see myself as a storyteller, not a creative writer. Does that make sense?
Mhm, mhm.
Because I am not good at crafting poetry, like poetic sentences. I'll say Charlie had a piece of pie. Charlie ate a piece of pie. And somebody else will talk about the aromas and the gooiness as I like, but I'm Charlie ate a piece of pie. And there are readers who like that. They want the story, not so much all the flashiness. So I accepted that's my style. And I would never turn back. When I look at, I can understand somebody who's young and wants a career in writing, but not someone who's 70 years old and enjoys telling stories that others like to read. So I don't ever see myself soliciting an agent or trying to find a publisher. If I can put out a quality product with what I have, and I could do so much more. Like I really have stuck with Amazon because Amazon publishing is very good. Royalty rates are 70%, which you would never have from a publisher. And plus I have Kindle Reads, my books are in Kindle Unlimited. So people who buy that subscription with Amazon can read any book for free. You probably have heard that. And I get paid for pages, not a lot, 0.00004 cents a page, but I do get paid for pages read. And I'm very, I'm not in it to make it a career or to, pay a mortgage. Although I know many self-published authors have. Mark Dawson, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He writes thrillers. He's an author from Great Britain, and he was a published author at first, but he turned over to self-publishing. He has a phenomenal course called Self-Publishing 101, and where he literally spells out everything that you need to do to be a self-published author. He is over 7 figures a year now with his writing. So it is possible to make a career out of it,
Yeah. So what kind of things do you like to do when you're not writing?
Well, you don't see Maggie lying here at my side. Hey, Maggie, you want to talk to people? Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on up here. Yeah, there's Maggie there. Come on, Maggie. Come on up here.
There we go.
There's the baby doll there. Yeah, see? That's Mark. You see Mark with me up there. There's Dawn. Oh, Sam's here. Yeah. Look at that. He's got a doggy too. I know. So Maggie, I got Maggie 2 years ago and thinking she would be the nice, sweet little cuddly Springer that my Pete was. I wrote a book about Pete. She's not. She is. But she's very feisty and very headstrong. She's settling down now. But my life centers around Maggie, actually. Writing. She lets me write. We do our walk in the morning, and then she lets me write until about 4 o'clock. And then she tells time and she says, all right, enough. And we go out and we sit on the patio, and hopefully some neighbors come over and sit on the patio. Even with COVID, we've been able to sit outside on the patio. And some days it was pretty cold this winter, but yeah. And then in the evening, I let her have a little free run. We had to cut it short tonight because we had to come in, but she's been very good about that. But it gives her some running around. And then So basically my writing and my doggy keep me busy. But I'm lucky, like I've got, I don't know if you know where the villas at French Creek are, behind Ace. I live in the villas, so we've got a community pool and we can all get together in the summers. And then there's a nice community spirit within everybody, within the neighborhood. So luckily I feel like I've got companionship, not only with people friends, but my doggy friend. And I had to put on hold my sewing and my knitting and some reading because Maggie doesn't like that. Well, she runs away with my yarn and my scissors and my fabric and all that. So some things are
Makes
put
it difficult for you. Okay.
Yeah, but I know I'm boring. She tells me I am boring. I know I am boring. But I do try to, do things with her. And quite honestly, during this year, I mean, I wrote 3 books this year. So, with COVID, we didn't get out, we didn't go anywhere. And I had a wonderful outlet and did not feel the strife that so many other people felt, because I could stay focused, keep my mind focused on doing something that was pleasant. So I feel really lucky with all that.
And the Below the Landscape, at least the one I've read, is definitely an escape from all that was going on. So
Yeah, it was. I know people were like, "You wrote another one already?" But I mean, you couldn't go anywhere, so it was a very good outlet. And I really am happy with Below the Landscape, because like it does bring in some of the history of the area, even though Aspen Notch is totally figment of my imagination. You can kind of picture being there, don't you think?
Can you read us a little something?
I will. I'm glad I didn't pick the passage that you read. And
I didn't think you would.
That was a good one, though, I have to say. All right. So a little background for those of you who may not have read it. In the story, Sue went to Trinkets and Treasures, the gift shop, to find some decor that she could use in the new addition that they were adding to their home. And she found these lovely oil painting landscapes, bought them, and they depicted like very beautiful scenery that had aspens on the side of the hill. I pictured that hill across from my house that had lots of trees on it. And here she finds out that one of the garden club members, a friend of hers, Ruth, had been engaged, and her fiancé disappeared right before their wedding. So Sue shows these paintings to her granddaughter, and the granddaughter says, "Oh, I can tell you where they are. I can show you where they are." She takes them there. They meet up with eventually a member of the U.S. Geological Survey, and he talks about all the mines underneath the landscape. So the title, Below the Landscape paintings, as well as the landscape below. And the mystery is what happened to Ruth's fiancé. And then Sue's granddaughter goes missing, and Sue's in a panic because she's thinking that her granddaughter fell into one of the mines, the coal mines. So the scene is this panic time where she doesn't know where Jessica went. She's checked everywhere. She's gone to the college, the junior college, community college that Jessica attends, and she can't find her. Now, Jessica's boyfriend, Ryan, is living next door. So anyway, that same day, her daughter Alexa was going to visit from Colorado, and she had to go pick her up at the airport. Well, anyway, she calls Evelyn. So close to 2 p.m., I called Evelyn to confirm the need for her and Marty to head to the airport and gave her the arrival information. With Alan still in a snit that I had disobeyed his edict to stay away from the wooded area near the benches at the bus stop, he suggested that Ryan take me home to wait for Jessica and wait for Alexa. No way, I exclaimed. Jessica's my granddaughter, and I intend to stay throughout the search. Besides, I can show you the way to the other entrance. I honestly don't know its location, Nathan said. No, Nathan is the guy from the U.S. Geological Survey. I honestly don't know its location, Nathan said. I think we need Sue's help. Alan nodded curtly, even as he called county police for backup in the search and rescue mission, telling them that we'd park our vehicles near the old bus stop clearing on the other east side of Route 117. When we arrived, I pointed out the almost indiscernible path and led the way through the brambles and trees along the steep incline, despite my burning leg muscles. Remember, Sue's like in her mid-60s. Finally, I located my cliff landmark and showed the team the boulders adjacent to the opening. That's definitely a mine entrance, Nathan noted, but the rock slide tells me it's dangerous. I don't think we should go in there. What are you hiding, jerk? Ryan snapped, pushing him aside. Get over yourself, man, Nathan argued. I'm telling you that this part of the mine looks very unstable. You know nothing about geology. Yeah, like you do, Ryan snarled. Get out of my way. Despite Alan's bellow, Ryan bounded the rocky terrain with all but Nathan following. I decided to hang back to keep an eye on Nathan, although quite honestly, I couldn't keep up with the others. In my opinion, I didn't like the expression on his face. In fact, Nathan looked very nervous. Once Ryan climbed over the boulders and vaulted into the adit, an adit is a mine entrance, horizontal mine entrance, with Mark close behind him, gunshots reverberated in the tunnel. Alan drew his weapon, turned on the lantern, then followed Ryan and Mark. Minutes later, 3 county police officers sprinted to the scene with weapons drawn, no doubt hearing shots fired. When Nathan turned to leave, I tripped him with my foot, telling one of the officers to handcuff him, while the other 2 proceeded to the mine entrance. Nathan continued to screech about the safety of the mine, even as several boulders plummeted from the cliff, landing near the adit. With Nathan cuffed to a tree, I followed the 3rd officer to the mine entrance, but he insisted that I move away. I heard scuffles and shouts while I prayed for everyone's safety, feeling helpless and wondering who fired their weapons. Eventually, I heard the blip of a radio, then one officer's voice asking for immediate assistance from the medical personnel. 3 persons injured, he noted, giving their location. My anxiety turned to panic. Oh, you'll have to read Below the Landscape to find out what happened to Jessica. And
So how can people get a copy of Below the Landscape?
well, I'm glad you asked, Mark. I locally, anybody who wants to stop over at Gateway Pharmacy, I've actually just been invited to bring over more books. So Below the Landscape is over there, and as well as all of my books now. Reeds and Company has a few of them, but with COVID, they haven't had as much interest right now. But I certainly appreciate their support of me. And then, of course, Amazon. I do stick primarily with Amazon, although I am on a wide distribution. So libraries like Mark, you can get your book at the library. Thank you, Mark. And You can, you could order it from Barnes and Noble and all that. It's on a wide distribution, but it is available at Amazon.com or AmazonSmile.com, whichever you wish to use, So thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to any of you folks who would like to make a comment or ask Kathleen a question. Feel free to unmute yourself. We have a comment in the chat. Kathleen, can you see that?
No, I don't see. Okay, let me click on that.
Yeah, can you?
Uh-oh, wait a minute. I might have lost you. Wait a minute.
You're still there.
Well, I got this learn how something or other. Wait a minute.
See the chat at all?
Okay. All right. Can you see me?
Yes.
I've got a
Hey,
screen up here.
You haven't changed.
Okay. All right. It says, how can we help? It just says Zoom. How can we help? No, I don't see any questions.
Okay, so there you're looking at something else. I'm not sure what that is,
All right, let
but
me close that out.
I'll read what's in the chat there.
Okay.
This is from Dawn. She says, thank you for talking to us and let us see Maggie. I look forward to reading more of your books. How do you keep track of all the details of your made up people and places?
I have started making spreadsheets. I didn't at first, but now that the series has progressed, and actually, I was going to include the characters in the last book, like a list of characters. And the editor said, no. She said, you're not Leo Tolstoy and you're not writing War and Peace. So just, skip the cast of characters. But I had it already made. So I posted it on my website under resources. So the characters are there. And now I did the same for Bedlam in the Blizzard. And I will post that too on my website. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to keep a spreadsheet because you do get mixed up sometimes.
Hi, Kathleen.
You know what? I can't see you because I'm in this funny screen. I'm going to try to go back and see if I can get out of this screen so I can see people.
I see.
And if I lose you, I'll click on the link again. Wait a minute.
Okay.
I don't know what.
That's funny because we can see you just fine. So
Open link. Okay, I'm back.
hey.
Oh, there's Terry. Hey, Terry. I've never met Terry. So nice to meet you, Terry.
I'm watching you and I'm looking and it's just like my mother-in-law's kitchen.
I know.
At home.
I can't wait to meet you sometime in person.
Yeah, we've been down a couple times, quick visits outside. But a couple things I want to say is I had my granddaughter with me, and I think it was my granddaughter or grandson, one of the two, and we were walking the path behind the swimming pool. And as we're walking, I'm like, this could be in your story, Kathleen's story. It was a path that we never walked. And of course, with the little one, we noticed a lot more than we would walking alone.
You were walking along French Creek there behind the pool?
Yes.
Yeah.
Behind the pond or whatever it is.
Right. There's like a drain. It's a wild animal pond now. Yeah. Frogs and bullfrogs.
But I wanted to say that, and I wrote something down so I wouldn't forget. Oh, I love your stories because I can relate to so much of it. Living down, I was born in Wilkes-Barre. I moved all over and lived down near Kathleen in Audubon.
Okay.
I grew up in Audubon. My husband's from Phoenixville. And then we moved back to Wilkes-Barre area, to Mountaintop. So I know a lot about what you're writing about. And the Specter of Truth, I have to say, was awesome because
Thank you.
all the Chester County things that I've seen growing up, it's just so neat. But I didn't realize until you said you're not a creative writer, you're more of a storyteller. And I think that's what I enjoyed most, because I don't have to go through all the fluff and, you know, all the descriptions. I get right down to the story. And you know me, I can read a good story fast.
Yeah, I know, and find little teeny details that. But I think that was a major breakthrough I had recently. That that I well, you know, you might have seen on my Facebook page that some guy, another writer, had asked me to do an interview, and it was a written interview, and I did a lot of reflection as I answered his questions, and afterwards I thought, oh, wait a minute, you know, you are a storyteller. I think of myself as a storyteller. I told stories to the kids, and here I was trying. I knew I wasn't ever going to be a literary, you know, star, but people kept telling me that they loved the stories. I thought, I'm a storyteller. That's what I am.
You are. And it's just so nice and so easy. Even my husband, who's not a big reader, has read every one of your, well, the only ones we haven't read are Pete the Spaniel. And as far as I know, I think that's it. I have all your other books right here.
Thank you, Terry. That's so nice.
But it's simple. It's, you know, your writing is simple, easy to understand, which makes it enjoyable, especially when there's so much on your mind, you can't even fit any more fluff in it. So
Thank
I
you.
really, truly enjoy your books.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have to tell you, you know, Sam, I see Sam's name up there. Sam Trayton and I met at a writers group. He is a phenomenal writer. He is so creative. His sentences just are so creative. And we decided to do a story together. He'd write a part and I'd write a part. I hope I'm not talking out of school here, Sam, but I have to say, we finished the book, but our styles are so different that I had people read the story and they saw the difference, who was writing when, you know? So it didn't quite work. Someday when we're rich and famous, Sam, we're gonna get somebody to edit that for us and kind of meld those voices. But there's a difference. He's a poet. I'm not a poet. You know, Charlie ate a piece of pie. So, but thank you, Terry. I really appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome. And thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks. Okay.
Anyone else with a comment or question? Okay. Well, this was fun, Kathleen. I hope you had fun.
I did, Mark. I did. This was a really good idea you had. This is really, really cool.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Glad I thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Someday, you know, someday I'll have like pictures of all these people all the way around the screen. And but I'm so grateful for those of you who took the time to come tonight. And so grateful that you are finding that my stories are fun and interesting to read. And I will keep plugging away.
Please do. Very engaging, very engaging.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
Thanks again, Kathleen.
Well, thanks. Good night, all.
Okay.
Good night.
Good, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.